The wind whipped across the high plateau with a cruel edge, stinging her cheeks and pulling at the tattered hem of her dress like greedy fingers. Snowflakes swirled in a mad dance around her, soft white against the jagged stone, and somewhere below, down past the ledge where the earth fell away, into a chasm waited silence. Cold and death. They'd brought her here at dawn, long before the sun rose proper. She'd been barefoot, wrists bound, hair still damp from the creek where they'd doused her the night before. Now the ropes bit into her skin, raw and splintered, and the cold burned deeper than fire. Behind her, the men of Elkhorn stood in a loose ring, 7 in all. Ranch hands, deputies, one with preacher's cloth beneath his coat. They didn't speak. They watched, eyes sunken, boots coated in frost. Only one stepped forward. The mayor. Jedediah Crane wasn't a tall man, nor was he loud, but his voice cut through the air like a whip when he chose to use it. For the crime of theft, he said, with a nod to the sky, as if God himself were his witness, and for slandering the name of this town's lawful mayor, justice shall be served. She didn't speak, didn't plead. Her jaw was set like stone, and though the wind tore at her lips, she wouldn't let them tremble. Her name was Clara. Just Clara. No family name worth mentioning. No kin to speak for her. The last man who'd tried was her father, and the mayor's men had buried him behind the jailhouse when she was 9. Jedediah's boots crunched forward through the snow, slow and certain. He tilted his head at her, mocked gentle. Could have had a warm house, a good life, my name, but you chose spit and scorn. She looked at him, then not at his mouth, which always smirked, but at his eyes. There was no madness in them, only calculation. He wanted her gone not because she'd said no, but because she'd made him look small. I'd rather sleep in the cold dirt than in your bed, she said, voice hoarse but steady. Behind him, one of the men flinched. Another muttered, Lord, forgive her. The preacher clutched his collar tighter. Jedediah's smirk faltered, only for breath. Then he raised his gloved hand. Then let the dirt have you. And they pushed her. There was no scream. Her breath caught in her throat. Her world upended in a rush of sky and rock and snow. The wind became a wall of sound. Her body clipped the cliffside, bounced, scraped. Sharp pain lit her ribs like fire. Something tore in her shoulder. Then she hit. Not the river far below, not the end she expected, but a ledge, cracked and narrow, littered with scree and dead brush. Her body crumpled hard against it, one leg folded wrong. The world turned red at the edges, and then black. When she opened her eyes again, it was dusk. The sky had gone purple and gold, and snow still fell, soft and indifferent. She couldn't feel her toes. Her mouth was filled with the taste of copper. She moved her hand, inch by inch, toward her ribs. Pain flared sharp, cracked, maybe broken. Her leg throbbed. Cold seeped through her dress, into bone. She should have died, but something kept her tethered. Maybe spite, maybe memory. The mayor's eyes. She didn't know how long she lay there. Long enough for the sun to vanish. Long enough for the coyotes to come. They padded across the ledge like ghosts, 6 of them, lean and silent. One stepped forward, yellow eyes catching the last flicker of twilight. She tried to sit up, but her body refused. She made a sound, half a sob, half a growl. The coyote paused, and then something shifted behind it. A darker shape, taller, human. The coyotes bolted, vanishing into shadow. He stood there, still as a stone figure, dressed in deerskin and furs, his hair tied back, a feather at one side. The snow clung to him, unmoving. In one hand he held a short spear. In the other, nothing. His face was painted in black ash and white clay, a vertical line down the chin, 2 marks across the cheeks. Apache. That word flashed in her mind with the weight of every warning the town had ever given. Savage, they'd said. Dangerous. Killers in the night. But he wasn't killing her. He was crouching beside her. His fingers touched her shoulder, gently. He said something in a language she didn't know. Low, soft, not angry. His eyes scanned her face. She tried to speak, but couldn't. He looked at her leg, the twisted angle of it, and nodded. Then, without asking, he lifted her. She cried out as he shifted her weight, pain ripping through her, but he didn't falter. His arms were strong, cradling her with practiced care. She thought she'd pass out again, but she didn't. Not yet. Not until the forest swallowed them both. The trees were thick and black in the night, tall pines that whispered with snow. He moved between them like water, silent and sure. Her face pressed to his chest, and she could hear his heartbeat slow, calm. She wanted to ask him why. Why he was helping her. Why he didn't leave her to the wolves. But the words were distant things. All she could do was hold on to consciousness and not let go. They reached a clearing. A bark-covered shelter crouched low near the trees, hidden. Smoke curled from a pit, barely visible. He set her down beside the warmth, wrapped her in a fur. She trembled, more from pain than cold now. He built the fire higher, melting snow for water, grinding herbs. Still, no words in English, just glances, hands moving with confidence. When he pressed the warm herb paste to her ribs, she hissed, eyes wide. He nodded, not unkind. Clara drifted into a fever dream after that. Faces came and went. Her mother's voice. Her father's boots on the porch. The smell of the mayor's cologne, sharp like tobacco and rot. Her body burned. Her mind floated. Then she was waking again. This time it was morning. The shelter let in light through woven pine branches. Snow had drifted up the sides but couldn't breach the warmth within. Her leg was splinted, her shoulder wrapped. A wooden bowl sat by her head, filled with broth. The Apache was there, squatting by the fire. His eyes met hers. He gave a single nod. No smile, no words. He gestured to the bowl. She drank. Salt. Gamey. But it warmed her throat. Her voice came out in a rasp. Thank you. He tilted his head, listening, but said nothing. She tried again. Clara. A pause. Then he spoke. Nantan. His voice was quiet but firm. Measured. The name settled in the air like a vow. Outside, a crow called. Somewhere, wind rattled dry branches. But inside that little hut, nothing stirred. She tried to move her leg. Pain spiked. Nantan stopped her with emotion. She nodded, breathing hard. Days passed. She didn't know how many. He left during the day, always returning with food, water, herbs. Never once did he act cruelly. Never once did he touch her beyond care. And though the silence between them stretched long, it never felt empty. Sometimes he'd sit by the fire and carve bone. Sometimes she'd watch the flames and remember. The mayor's voice. Could have had a warm house. No, she'd rather freeze to death. By the third day, she could sit up without screaming. Her ribs still ached, but they held. She watched Nantan skin a rabbit with swift, elegant strokes. His hands were calloused, but clean. Every motion was purposeful. There was grace in it. You live out here alone, she asked. He looked up, meeting her eyes. Then he shrugged. She tried again. Why'd you help me? No answer. But he studied her a long moment before returning to his work. That night, she cried. Quietly. She thought he was asleep, but he wasn't. He shifted, added wood to the fire, and didn't look away as the tears ran down her face. She wasn't weak. She wasn't broken. But everything she had, her dignity, her name, her future, had been taken by men who never saw her as more than a thing to possess. Until now. Until him. Snowstorms came and passed. Once, she woke to find him gone longer than usual. Hours dragged. She feared he wouldn't return. Then he did, blood on his shoulder, a fox in his arms. She helped him clean the wound, trembling as she pressed the cloth to his skin. He didn't flinch, didn't speak, just watched her. Thank you, she whispered again. He nodded. The next morning, he gave her a walking stick, helped her to her feet. Every step hurt, but she walked. When they reached the ridge, the sun was rising. The valley stretched below, vast and glittering with snow. Pines stretched like frozen soldiers, and beyond them, a trail that led back to the town, back to Elkhorn. She stared at it a long time. They think I'm dead, she said. Nantan looked at her. Maybe I am, she added, or maybe I'm something else now. He didn't speak, but he reached into his satchel and pulled something out. Her old shawl. Torn, blood-stained, but hers. She hadn't even noticed he'd taken it from the cliff. She held it tight, wind catching her hair, and for the first time in days she smiled. Not because she was safe, but because she was no longer afraid. The wind howled again, louder this time, and below in Elkhorn, the mayor lit a cigar and leaned back in his chair, believing her body was bones at the canyon bottom. He didn't know she was walking again, didn't know she wasn't alone, and didn't know that one day soon she'd come back, with fire in her eyes and an Apache by her side. The snow was deeper here, farther from town, where the forest thickened and the sun rarely touched the ground. Clara's breath curled in wisps before her face, her steps uneven as she leaned on the branch Nantan had carved into a walking stick. The splint around her leg itched beneath the hide wrappings, but she said nothing. Pain was a smaller thing now. It followed her like a shadow but did not speak. Nantan walked ahead. Quiet as ever, his footsteps light despite the burden on his back, 2 rabbits and a satchel of roots slung from his shoulder. He never looked back to see if she kept pace. He didn't have to. Clara had learned to move like him. Deliberate, steady, with eyes wide and ears sharper than they'd ever been in Elkhorn. At night, when they sat beside the fire, she studied his face in the flickering light. He rarely spoke, but his silence was not empty. It was a language of glances, nods, the occasional grunt of approval or warning. He had a hunter's calm, a soldier's discipline, and a gaze that saw farther than she could guess. He had saved her, splinted her bones, fed her when she couldn't lift her hands, and not once had he asked for thanks or even trust. But he'd earned both. Still, a part of her remained wary. Not of him, but of herself. The girl who'd stood on the edge of that cliff, proud and unyielding, had broken on the rocks. What rose afterward wasn't weaker, but it was something else. She didn't yet know what. Nantan had taken her farther into mountains as her leg healed. Always moving, never staying more than a day or 2 in one place. Clara had asked him once, during a snowfall, why they didn't stay at the shelter he'd first taken her to. He had pointed to the sky, where buzzards circled. She understood then. Men were still looking, and dead girls didn't leave footprints. They camped one evening beneath a cliffside where pine needles blanketed the ground. The smell of sap and smoke mingled as Nantan prepared a stew from wild onions and meat. Clara peeled bark into thin curls for kindling, her fingers steady now, sure. "You don't talk much," she said softly, not expecting an answer. He looked up, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. "I used to talk," he said after a moment. His English was rough but clear, shaped by a tongue that knew a different rhythm. "Then I listened more." "What made you stop?" He stirred the pot. "Words are like arrows. Good if true, trouble if loose." Clara smiled faintly, staring into the fire. "I guess I've loosed my share of trouble." He nodded. They ate in silence, the steam rising between them. She was about to ask more when Nantan's eyes darted sideways. He rose slowly, motioning for her to stay still. His hand went to the hatchet at his belt. The sound came then, low, guttural, close. A growl. Clara's heart kicked. From the trees, 2 yellow eyes emerged. Then another. A low shadow slunk forward. Wolf, lean with hunger, ribs visible through the fur. Behind it, 3 more followed. She reached for her stick, but her hands shook. Nantan didn't speak. He stepped forward, body low, blade drawn. He made a sound, not a yell, but a sharp, high whistle that echoed through the trees. The wolves hesitated. Then the largest lunged. Nantan met it midair, blade flashing once, twice. Blood sprayed in arcs. The others scattered into the shadows, whining. The fight was over in seconds. Clara hadn't moved. Nantan stood over the carcass, breathing hard. His arm was slashed, but not deep. He turned to her, eyes steady. "They're hungry," he said simply. She swallowed hard. "So are men." He looked at her a long moment before answering. "Worse." They skinned the wolf and used its hide to patch the lean-to. That night, Nantan cleaned his wound without flinching. Clara helped where she could, her fingers brushing his. She didn't pull away. He showed her how to bind meat in bark to preserve it, how to spot rabbit tracks under snow, how to listen for the wind's change. She watched, learned. And in the quiet between survival, something shifted. A comfort that wasn't trust, but something close. She began to sleep without waking in fear. One afternoon, while gathering firewood, Clara found a shallow creek half frozen. She leaned down, cupped water to her lips, and saw her reflection. She barely recognized the girl staring back. Her face was thinner, the softness replaced by something sharp. Her eyes no longer wandered, they searched. Her lips had lost their color, but not their strength. She looked like a ghost of the girl who once scrubbed floors in Elkhorn, and she felt stronger for it. When she returned to camp, Nantan was carving something. It was small, made from bone, an eagle in flight. He offered it without a word. She held it like it might crack in her hands. Why, she asked. Eagle watches the ground, he said, but never forgets how to rise. That night, she dreamed of fire. Not the warm kind, but the kind that devoured. The town of Elkhorn in flames. People screaming. And in the center, the mayor untouched, laughing as the world burned. She woke in a sweat. Nantan stirred beside the fire, watching her. You were crying, he said quietly. I saw the mayor. He nodded. He still follows you. She looked at her leg. He won't stop. Then you face him. She blinked. What? When deer run, wolves follow. When deer turns, wolf bleeds. It was a simple thing, said plainly, but it echoed louder than a shout. She said nothing, but she didn't sleep again that night. The next day, Nantan took her higher into the hills, where the snow was thinner and the trees sparser. The view stretched wide. She could see the edge of Elkhorn in the far distance, smoke trailing from chimneys, the ribbon of the river cutting through the land. She stared for a long time. Her hands clenched. Then Nantan knelt, pointing at the snow. Footprints. Not theirs. Not old. 3 men. One with a limp. One dragging something heavy. Clara's heart froze. They're close, she whispered. He nodded. They're looking for me. Not you, Nantan said. The prize. The words chilled her more than the wind. They waited until dark, then followed the tracks. Slowly, silently, every step measured. Clara's limp had lessened, though the cold bit at her knee. Nantan moved like a shadow, and she tried to mimic his rhythm. Her heartbeat was a steady drum. They found the men in a small clearing near a stream. A tent, a fire, bottles, laughter. One of them stood, pistol at his belt, talking about the girl with the red hair and the bounty worth $100 dead or alive. Clara froze. Nantan turned to her. His voice was low, sharp. Do you want to see them gone? She hesitated, then nodded. Yes. He handed her a second knife, short, curved, bone-handled. Her hand trembled. Only strike if they strike first. He vanished into the dark. She circled wide, crept closer. Their faces came into view. She knew one. Tom Greeley, a ranch hand from town. He'd laughed when the mayor sentenced her. Said something about girls who don't know their place. Now he sat with his back to the fire, cleaning his boots. She stepped closer. Her boots snapped a twig. He spun, reaching for his pistol. Nantan was faster. The tomahawk caught Tom in the arm. The second man ran. The third dropped his bottle and fell flat, crying out that he meant no harm. It was over in moments. Clara stood, breathing hard, the knife still raised. You'll die where you stand, Clara said. Not by my hand. Not yet, but your time is done. The preacher stood near the corner, trembling. Speak, Clara ordered. The old man cleared his throat. There was no vote, he said. No trial. Jedediah gave the order alone. The room murmured louder now. Sheriff, Clara asked. The sheriff didn't speak, but he stepped back. That was enough. She turned to Jedediah. You said you'd give me a warm house, a good life. All I had to do was kneel. Do you remember that? He sneered. I'd rather sleep in snow than serve you. He spat at her feet. You'll hang for this. No, she said. You will. The townsfolk didn't rise in anger. Not all at once. But the tide had turned. She could feel it. A man by the stove stepped toward the door. Another stood, jaw clenched, and walked out. Others followed. And the ones who remained no longer looked at Jedediah with fear. He drew breath, preparing to shout. Nantan struck him across the face, once, hard. The mayor crumpled to the floor. Clara turned to the preacher. "Tie him." The old man hesitated, then obeyed. By sunset, they had dragged Jedediah to the gallows behind the jailhouse, the same place her father had been hanged without a proper charge. The sky was blood orange, the air thick with dust and judgment. Clara stood below the platform, watching as ropes tightened and murmurs rose. The preacher read no scripture. There was no final word. When it was done, no one cheered. The town simply stood still, quiet, as if a great breath had been held for years and finally released. Clara didn't stay. By nightfall, she and Nanton had ridden beyond the hills, the moon casting long shadows behind them. They made camp beside a creek lined with aspen, their trunks pale in the starlight. The fire crackled. Nanton sat across from her, cleaning the knife. "You could have killed him," he said. "I did," she replied. He nodded once. "Good." She looked into the flames. "What now?" "You go where you want. Start again." She was silent a long time. "I don't want to forget," she said finally. "Then don't. Carry it." "I will." She reached into her pack and drew the eagle charm, turned it in her hands. "He thought throwing me off that cliff would end me, but the fall didn't kill me." Nanton stirred the fire. "It gave me wings." They didn't speak again that night. The stars wheeled above them, slow and cold and endless, and when the fire burned low, Clara lay beside it, not as a girl cast away, but as a woman remade in the silence of the wild. No longer prey, no longer afraid. And Elkhorn would remember her, not as the girl who died, but as the one who returned with an Apache by her side. The rain came down hard 2 days later, carving deep rivulets through the red dirt as Clara and Nantan pushed across the high trail leading toward the Mesa country. The horses struggled on the slope, hooves slipping on slick stone, and the wind howled through the passes like a warning. Neither spoke. They'd left Elkhorn behind, but the silence between them was filled with what had not been said, what had not yet ended. Clara rode upright, her cloak soaked through, braid pulled tight against her neck. Her eyes scanned the horizon, no longer with fear, but with the sharpened edge of one who expected pursuit. Nantan, ever the sentinel, rode slightly behind her now, watching their flank, watching her. In Elkhorn, justice had come in the form of a hanging rope and a cold stare. But justice, Clara had learned, did not bury ghosts. It unearthed them. They came to a dead stand of junipers, wind-twisted and black with age. Beyond them, a small rock shelf jutted out over the valley. It was there Nantan stopped, dismounted, and pointed to the trees below. Smoke, faint but rising. 3 columns. Small fires. Camp men. "Tracking us?" she asked. He nodded once. "Why?" "Money. Revenge. Maybe orders from someone new." Clara's jaw tightened. Jedediah's body was still swinging when we left. Who would be that bold so soon? Nantan crouched low, running fingers through the mud. Weak men follow power. And when power dies, the next snake slithers up to take its place. Her fingers found the hilt of the knife at her belt. "Then we cut the head off before it strikes." They moved quick after that, tethering the horses in a gully and descending the ridge on foot. The rain masked their footsteps. The scent of wood smoke led them close enough to see the camp set in a hollow near the base of the mesa wall. 5 men, bedrolls, rifles. One wore a deputy star. Clara recognized him. Deputy Harlan. He'd laughed the day they tied her wrists at the courthouse. Laughed like it was all a show. And now he was here, dry under a canvas lean-to, drinking from flask. She whispered, "You think they know I'm still alive?" "They'll know when you stand over them," Nantan replied. They waited until night. When the last of the men had eaten and the fire burned low, they moved like shadows. The first man died before he woke. Nanton's blade was silent. The second reached for his rifle, but Clara was there, fast, furious. The butt of her knife cracked his skull. Only 3 remained, scrambling from their blankets, shouting, blind in the dark. Harlan screamed first. "It's her! The witch!" A shot rang out. Clara ducked. The ball, missing her ear by inches, Nantan flanked the shooter, slammed him down. Bones cracked. Another man broke for the trail, running full tilt. Clara chased him. Her breath was ragged, her legs burning from the steep climb. She didn't care. She caught him near the boulders, tackled him hard to the earth. He flipped her, landed a punch to her ribs. But she didn't cry out. She drove her knee into his gut and slammed his head against the rock until he went limp. When she stood, the rain had washed her face clean. Her blood mixed with his on the stones. Back in the camp, Nantan stood over the deputy, his knife pressed to the man's throat. Clara approached slowly. Harlan saw her and froze. "You, Clara, listen, wasn't my call. I just followed orders. Jedediah told us what to do. We were keeping order, what we thought was right. You tied my hands," she said. His mouth worked helplessly. He had the law. We didn't question him. "Hell, you're alive, ain't you? That counts for something." She crouched in front of him. The fire behind her made her shadow long. "You followed a man who killed girls to keep his name clean. You helped him try to erase me. You know what that counts for." He didn't answer. She stood, looked to Nantan. Let him crawl. The knife lifted. Harlan fell to his knees. He crawled through the mud like a dog, breath ragged. "Tell whoever's waiting behind you," Clara called after him. "We're not running anymore. We're not hiding. If they come again, they'll find more than knives waiting." She didn't look back. They burned the camp, took what they needed, saddled the horses, and rode before dawn. By noon the next day, the sun was hot again. No trace of the storm remained. Only the wet smell of dirt rising in plumes. They made camp in a canyon mouth where the rocks rose up like walls carved smooth by time. There was water here and shelter. A place for now to breathe. Nantan sat with his back to the stone, sharpening his blade, slowly, always slowly. Clara watched him, then spoke. "I thought killing Jedediah would fix everything." He didn't look up. "You cut a weed, but roots run deep. I didn't know I was still angry." "You are not angry," he said. "You are awake." She stared at the fire. "I'm tired of running." "You're not running." She looked at him. "Then what are we doing?" "Becoming." They ate in silence. Dried meat, berries. She didn't taste it. The canyon was quiet, save for the wind. Then faint hoofbeats. She was on her feet instantly. Nantan too. They crouched low, listening. One rider. Light. Fast. Clara reached for her rifle, raised it slowly over the edge of the rocks. The rider came into view. A boy, no more than 12. Breathless, wide-eyed. He dismounted, awkwardly, stumbled toward them. "You're her," he said. "The one they say came back." Clara kept the rifle trained. "Who sent you?" He swallowed hard. "My sister, she's sick. My pa says there's no doctor in town no more, not since Jedediah died. Folks are scared. Some left, some stayed. But they say you have an Apache with you. They say you know things." She lowered the rifle. "I'm not a healer." He nodded. "I know, but you ain't afraid." That hit her deeper than she expected. The boy stepped closer. "Please," he said, "maybe you'd come." She looked at Nantan. He didn't move. "You decide," he said. She turned back to the boy. "How far?" 2 hours ride, maybe less." She nodded. "Let's go." They rode hard. By dusk, they reached a broken house on the edge of a dry creek. The roof sagged. The shutters hung crooked. But the inside was warm, firelight flickering, the girl lying still on a straw mattress. Clara knelt beside her. The child burned with fever, lips cracked, eyes sunken. She looked at the father. "How long?" 3 days, he said. "No food stays down. Water's not enough." Clara turned to Nantan. "Is there anything?" He examined the girl. Opened a pouch, crushed herbs. "It will help," he said. "Maybe." They boiled water, mixed bark and leaves, fed the child slowly. Clara sat with her through the night. The girl moaned once, then quieted. By morning, the fever had broken. The father wept. Outside, Clara sat on the porch, watching the sun rise. Nantan joined her, handed her a cup of tea. "You still angry?" he asked. She shook her head. "No. You want to leave?" She stared at the horizon. "I don't think I can." He nodded. Not yet. He leaned back. Then we stay. Until the next storm. She smiled faintly. Not all victories came with a noose or a blade. Some came quietly, on horseback in the dark, with a sick child and a plea whispered into the canyon wind. And some women didn't just come back from the dead. They stayed, to build what death could not destroy.